Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Outdated Wrestling Hour. We're glad to have you back. I know I kind of fell on my face last week trying to show you how to put up a ring post. Well, anyway, this time, I'm going to show you how to go from an abdominal stretch into a Boston Crab. Here we go. Oh, no. Oh, I fell on my wallet. It's the Outdated Wrestling Hour. Hi, everybody. We're back. My name is Bob Smith, and I am your genial host, or at least I hope I'm genial anyway, of the Outdated Wrestling Hour. We're really glad that you're back with us, and we are looking forward to this episode because we're going to take a look at maneuvers, holds, finishers, the things that make wrestling, well, wrestling. Remember that? I do too. Our guest is Mr. Liam Savage once again from the Front Row Material podcast. And I'm hoping you get a kick out of hearing our choices for our favorite maneuvers, holds, moves, finishers, you name it. We're going to talk about it. So, hey, enough of my yakking. Let's discuss wrestling in the ring. Can you believe it? Hey guys, look who's here. All the way from Canada once again. It's Mr. Liam Savage. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, Bob. It's great to be back, and it's been a little while, but let's touch base again. Let's see what's happening.
Yeah, we were talking as we always say in these podcasts. We were talking before we hit the record button. Yep. It's like every podcast these days. We were talking before we went on air, but we were talking about the state of today's wrestling and how you're not really cottoning to it all that well, are you?
No, I'm not. It's like I was telling you, it's a believability, and I'm not getting it. It's a lot of cartoonish. It's almost going back to early 90s kind of WWF for me in a lot of ways. And I know that sounds weird to some people. And if you agree with me, great. If you don't, great. But it's gotten to a point where it's just very cartoonish, and I can't fathom a lot of this stuff that doesn't look believable at all anymore. And I don't know, it just doesn't grab me like it used to. And it never has since the Montreal Screwjob. That was kind of like the high point for me. And then everything else, and people think I'm nuts when I say I wasn't a fan of the Attitude Era. That's when I lost interest. And then a lot of people say, wow, are you serious? And yeah, I'm completely serious. It just didn't do it for me. So, that's where I'm at.
There you go. Yeah. Hey, each to their own. And, I agree with you in many aspects of what you're saying. So that's why you're here to talk with me about some old stuff. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good.
The concept for this show, like I always said, I always wanted to look into wrestling psychology and the old school way of thinking, but now I'm going to look at the old school way of working, moves and maneuvers, stuff that you and I have noticed over the course of the last X number of years. I don't want to tell you my X number. Shoot, I'll say it, 50 years for me.
Sure.
Just about 50? Yeah. Oh, more than that, because I was, oh God, I don't want to go there, but yeah, I've been watching wrestling for over 50 years. I think I'm holding up pretty good, but I'm an old man. God, I'm an X-Man. Anyway, here we go. We're going to look at, and these are in no particular order, and probably not everybody's choices out there for both Liam and myself. People these days tend to go for risky aerial stuff, and but in all my years of watching wrestling, these are the moves that made me at certain times say, wow. Just wow. Made me thrilled. Made me say, how did they do that? And made me go to a box office and buy a ticket or turn on that TV every Saturday afternoon. I'm sure you felt the same way when you were getting into this stuff.
Well, yeah, there's certain ones that will put an impact on you, and you think back to, it's kind of It's kind of like when you saw something for the first time, you're hoping to catch that rush again, and it's oh my God, can you believe that move? I've never seen anything like that. Man, if something could just come close to that or eclipse it. And sometimes it happens, a lot of times it doesn't, but you can find those ones that you always stick with and you think like, oh my God, the first time I ever saw that, wow, that was incredible. That's what I
Okay.
do. Yeah.
So let's get right to it. And these are in no particular order. These are the moves when I'm thinking, what are my favorite moves and maneuvers? They just came right to me. I hardly had to write anything down. They're all right in your head and your heart. You always remember. Number
Sure.
one for me on my list, and again, these are in no particular order until we get to
Mhm.
the last one. Bobby Eaton's Alabama Jam.
Oh yeah.
The Hulk Hogan like leg drop from the top rope, delivered with speed and precision every time. I mean, it was a thing of beauty every time he did. He won championships. I think he beat Pillman for the light heavyweight championship with that move.
Hmm.
Bobby Eaton was about as good as it gets, and that move, I didn't know of anyone who did it before he did it. Do you?
I can't think off the top of my head. A lot the running joke is usually all the great moves are invented in Japan first, it seems, but so I could have been there, who knows? But yeah, I mean, he's the one that I mean, you can't fault anything he ever did, really. He was just perfect in the ring. Um,
Uh,
you know,
the more I can't tell you the number of wrestlers I've talked to and people I've talked to think he's in the top 10 of the greatest wrestlers who ever lived.
oh yeah.
And it has nothing to do. The beauty part about that, it has nothing to do with championship wins or losses. It's what he did. It was
Hmm.
how he was in the ring. He was, I hate to use the term, but ring general. He knew what he was doing, and he taught
Absolutely.
other people what he was doing and made them better.
Hmm. Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, I think Stan Lane was a better wrestler after he got through with Bobby Eaton. I'll tell you that much.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He made everybody better.
Yeah,
Definitely,
they were
definitely.
great. That version, the Midnight Express, was that's probably the best one. I mean, Dennis Condrey was great too, but
Yeah, I got
there's some. They were the sweet and the sour, the yin and the yang. Those two, Lane and Eaton. They just blended together so perfectly, and
yeah. I've
and
never I don't know if I've ever like actually found out which is the better version for me because I love both versions, but I think the one with Lane I saw more of growing up,
right,
so I
right,
it kind of
right.
hits me a bit differently than with Condry, but Condry is no slouch either. So
No, he's
no,
great.
yeah,
He's absolutely great. Also, Bobby Eaton used to have a slingshot neck breaker that was kind of a
hmm,
combination of Tully Blanchard and, dare I say, Swede Hansen.
sure,
Actually, excuse me, a slingshot backbreaker because it would end in a backbreaker. The slingshot off the
hmm,
rope into a backbreaker.
yeah, yeah,
And Swede Hansen used to have a killer backbreaker. I mean,
hmm.
nobody gives these older guys credit, but Swede Hansen was a big, tough son of a gun, and it looked real. That's why I
Hmm.
liked his backbreaker. So, all
Absolutely.
right, there's my first one. What's your next one?
Um, yeah, and they're in no particular order, but I was thinking of because I love a good suplex, but and I was saying to the listeners now, I was saying to Bob beforehand that I base all my moves that I love and finishers and all that in kayfabe as actually being something that would potentially, really knock an opponent out or really give him a good stun, that kind of deal. Nothing that kind of looks like you could see through it. So I love a good suplex. I love the Northern Light suplex, and especially if you remember back to Hiroshi Hase from New Japan, and he was in WCW as well. He did an excellent Northern Lights suplex, and the whole point of floating over with them and holding them there, so it makes it believable to think that the guy might not be able to get out of that pinning attempt because it is a pinning attempt, but
Mm-hmm.
they can't physically move their body unless they really wriggle free. And if they're really knocked out, that could do it. And he did it flawlessly. And I haven't seen many that do it as good as him, but um, he's one of my kind of underdog favorites as far as people from the really underrated that people don't give a lot of credit to because he was an incredible wrestler.
It's probably just based on how many people didn't see him. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It's a U.S. Japan gap that's always
yeah.
going to be there.
But
I think if more people saw that stuff, they'd have a better appreciation for it. Really.
yeah, that's where tape trading helped me out. I got to see all that with the
Yeah.
tape trading. So yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's a good choice right there. Excellent. Well done. And now
yeah.
I'm going to go way back to when I was a little wee tadpole, if you can believe that. And I even hate to bring this up, but I loved it. He'd do a shuffle. He'd be mad. He'd do a little shuffle. And Bobo Brazil would come down with his cocoa butt, headbutt.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I loved it. The crowds loved it. Again, this is not a fantastic maneuver in terms of athleticism or anything like that, but it looked good.
Oh yeah.
It was over, and he was a main eventer for like 45 years. I mean,
Yep.
and that was his finisher.
Hmm.
That was basically his finisher most of the time. So I'm putting that on my list because, like I said, as a little kid, I thought it was cool.
You can't dispute that. I mean, it doesn't have to be fancy, right? It just
Right.
has to look like I said, that you're really gonna throw your opponent for a loop, possibly knock him out, kind of deal. And a headbutt, yeah, it's gonna probably hurt the guy giving it too, but that's the whole point, right? It's like he's directing the motion, so he can decide whether he's gonna really knock himself for a loop too, or do it in a way that's gonna knock his opponent out. And there's nothing wrong with that.
People talk about the originators of hardcore wrestling,
Hmm.
and I think Bobo Brazil should be kind of considered on that list because his battles with people like Blassie and the Sheik were pretty
Hmm.
violent matches.
Sure.
And those were probably his two biggest opponents he ever had. So if you consider Blassie and Sheik to be precursors, I think Bobo's got to be in that list too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, you look at
You know?
just the Detroit territory and how that all worked. It was a lot of hardcore stuff there in the 60s, 70s and all that. And that's where a lot of that stuff originated. And a lot of people don't necessarily give the credit to that. They may to the Sheik, but if you think of all the players that were helping him out, as long as that goes, Bobo Brazil, like him and the Sheik, they were hand in hand for God knows how long, right? So
No kidding. They probably
yeah.
wrestled each other 500 times. I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
even being facetious.
Easy. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it wasn't just in Cobo Arena. They were all around whatever circuit they were doing, and probably other
Yeah.
places too. So,
Hmm.
and little tours when they got older and stuff like that. So,
Absolutely.
all right, your turn.
Well, now I'm a big mark for Bret Hart. So you know where I'm going. Sharpshooter. Now,
Sure.
now there have been different versions, and once again, I think the originator was in Japan. Riki Choshu, I believe, might have invented this. I can't say 100%, but everything I've seen, it looks like all the footage I've seen of, I think when he was in All Japan, it traced back to before Bret Hart had really broken out of Stampede. And I don't know if he was using it then or even with the Hart Foundation, to be honest with you. So that was the thing. Um, Setting Choshu aside, when I watched Bret Hart do that and just the way he would lay back on it, and you could see just in his face, he's just like, he's really cinching it in, just, really getting excited, really wanting the guy to tap, and the pressure you're putting on the leg muscles. And when you look at that, you go like, man, that could really put someone in a lot of agony. And he
Hmm.
did. I mean, there's no holes in Bret Hart as far as his work goes. So when you see that, everything he did looked real. And,
Yes.
from the punches to the kicks to everything. But the sharpshooter, man, that was one of the best finishing moves I've ever seen. Sting never did it as good to me. He did it well, but he never did it as good as Bret Hart. Bret Hart made it look very believable.
I always thought this sharpshooter was a variation of the Boston Crab. And the
Yeah,
Boston Crab was overused in
sure,
every wrestling league. I mean, every every league had two guys that used the Boston Crab, either a
sure.
finisher or a hold. No, they used them as finishers in the old days. We got to remember the stuff that they use in the middle of matches now used to be finishers,
Yes.
and that bothers me. Well,
Oh
there's
yeah.
more of this stuff coming up, but
Oh yeah. Me
you
too.
know what I'm saying? It's like it used to be you could systematically break down your opponent and then hit him with the finisher, and there's your match.
Right.
Now people are kicking out of that stuff and breaking free of them, and the match goes on for the 40 minutes. So what can I
Yeah.
tell you? But anyway, that's a great pick, and we'll go back to the same era, maybe a few years earlier.
Hmm.
Most people who are professional wrestlers' sons don't get a lot of respect. People used to poo-poo Greg Gagne. They used to poo-poo George Goulas in that case for good reason.
Yeah.
But Tully Blanchard
Mm-hmm.
superseded the fact that he was a wrestler's son. His maneuver, the slingshot suplex, smooth as silk, totally original. Didn't matter the size of the guy he was suplexing. It was so sweet. I never
Mm-hmm.
saw him botch it. He did it both in the NWA and then when he came over to the WWF with this tag team with Arn Anderson. One of the great finishers. And if you notice, most of their tag teams, that was the finish
Mm-hmm.
after this slingshot suplex. So
Right.
beautiful, just beautiful. Did you ever see him do it?
Oh yeah, yeah, many times. And yeah, Tully broke out of his dad's shadow very, very well. Like,
Yeah,
promoter's son and all that, and Joe Blanchard worked too. But you can't. He's another one you can't really find a lot of holes in anything that he did. I mean, him and Arn, man, just
yeah.
forget about it. It's just
They are the standard for realistic modern tag teams. Everybody
absolutely
compares them to Tully and Arn now. Have you noticed that?
yes, yes.
What is it, FTR and all that other stuff?
FTR, yeah, yep.
Everybody compares him to Tully and Arn. That's how good they were.
Absolutely,
And
and there's nothing wrong with that. There's
and
nothing wrong with being compared to them.
and on a personal note, one time Apter and I had dinner with Tully and Arn.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when they were first breaking into the WWF, we snuck into a restaurant and we had dinner together. And
Oh, that's great.
Fine gentlemen, and it was an honor to just sit with them because it's like they were great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? Imagine I don't even know how or why the WWF signed them at that point because they were so against what they usually did. Bobby Heenan was their manager. They called them the Brain Busters at that point.
Yeah.
And they were so unlike everything else that was going on there.
Well, you got to think too. It was at the time because Crockett was starting to really lose steam. They were close to being bought out at that time. I think they had left just before the buyout happened with Turner, and McMahon was always looking to load up. And if he saw any weaknesses in Crockett's promotion or her, you're not gonna not go for one of the best tag teams going, even if it wasn't in your promotion.
Right.
So yeah, for him not to sign them would have been ludicrous. But he even tried with the Midnight Express, but they wouldn't go for it.
Right.
He tried with a lot of teams. Some teams wouldn't go for it. Tully and Arn did, and worked out money wise, I guess, for part of that time. But it didn't work out to what they wanted.
Right. In any event, it was just different.
Yeah.
So old school, it was refreshing at that point. So
yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
You get a pick now. Go right ahead.
I got a pick. Well, hopefully you don't have this on your list.
No, I'm anxious to see if we match.
But
we'll see what happens.
Nothing wrong. The classic pile driver is there.
No.
Because that's one obviously where if you really want to know how it can screw somebody up, look at Steve Austin, Owen Hart. There you go. They're a perfect example, right? You do it the wrong way, that can really screw someone up. But you look to probably the best I've ever seen, Jerry the King Lawler, and nobody can do a pile driver like him. The only one that came close, I thought, was Paul Orndorff, because he would have,
boom, yeah,
he would have a bit of a jump with it, and that looked even more dangerous. But just as far as consistency goes, I would say Jerry Lawler, because everybody feared it, and it was the one thing. He sent Andy Kaufman to the hospital with it. It's like, it was so devastating, he had to send him to the hospital, and Orndorff's a very close second for me. But yeah, I mean, Jerry Lawler, I think he popularized that to a point where everybody looks to him as the master of that move. And that's one move right there that can paralyze your opponent, right? So nothing wrong with that.
Nope, I go with that wholeheartedly. That's a perfect pick, and your number 2 was perfect. I would have said the same thing on both. No, you nailed it.
I mean, and also I can even look in like the later stuff. Jerry Lynn, who never gets enough credit. When he was in ECW, he would do I guess they called it the cradle pile driver, but I guess it's kind of the Gotch style pile driver they call it now. for Karl Gotch, but I think he did a really good one too. He would lock it in, over top of the legs and kind of force you down, and that looked really good too. But yeah, it always goes back to Lawler as being the best one for me for that.
Who can forget Andy Kaufman
Oh yeah, yeah,
bouncing him off the mat, bouncing him off the mat a couple of times? It was
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I get to pick now,
Yes.
and I'm going to mention the name Freddie Blassie, but I'm not going to talk about him gnawing a guy's forehead into a bloody roadmap. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not. I'm
Okay.
going to show you how old I am. Do you know what his finisher was?
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you, to be honest.
Everybody thinks he just bit people until they passed out. That's not what it was.
Hmm.
The idea of him drawing blood from the forehead was to confuse and scare his opponent into a state of weakness until he could apply, ladies and gentlemen, the Southern swinging neckbreaker.
Okay.
He had a killer neckbreaker. You had to have seen him in action, but it was a tremendous finishing maneuver. He'd stretch the guy's arms out completely the length of his arms and just flip them over, and it was a 30. What wasn't even 30 seconds. It was like 1 second. Boom, down to the mat. 1, 2, 3. Best neck breaker I ever saw, and there's been a bunch of them. Do you have any neck breaker favorites that
Uh,
you've watched in your time? Because you know
um,
what, nobody does a neck breaker anymore. Because I think if it's done wrong, it's legitimately dangerous. you know,
I,
you got to be careful with that hold.
I mean, I guess Rook Rude's Rude Awakening. I guess that would be,
Yeah,
that one always stands out for me. Um, I wish I had seen Blassie's Nightbreaker now, but I've only seen bits and pieces of his work because a lot of his stuff is kind of hard to find, obviously. But
it
yeah.
really is. What a. And here's the problem with that. I digress just for a second. I know that the WWE has tapes of him when he worked there in 71 and 73. I know they have
Mhm.
it because I see little clips of it, but they
Yeah,
never show it probably because of the violence and all that other stuff, where it's considered passe or something. But I would love to get more tape of him. There's no tape of him.
I would
He's
like
one
to
of the.
see.
He's got such a lack of video of Fred Blassie. It's a
Yeah,
crime.
no, I'd love to see some stuff from the California territory. He did a crazy business over there, from everything I've ever read, and I would love to see some of that stuff. That stuff's hard to find too, apparently. So, yeah, but you would think with WWE having access to all this stuff, they would have no problem getting that, you know, available
But
for
I
everybody
know
to see.
the problem is I know it exists. I know it does because
Sure.
I see in his Hall of Fame and stuff like that were little moments from those tapes. So the tapes
Hmm.
still are out there. They just don't show them.
Sure. Yeah.
Instead, they rather show him as a manager and all that other stuff. But
Hmm.
he was the most ferocious villain I ever saw or ever will see. Very believable.
Hmm.
Um, the Ricky Dozen. There's a couple of Ricky Dozen matches on YouTube you can check out.
Hmm.
That was early
That.
Vampire Blassie, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know how else to put it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
well
That was
worth
early
checking out.
'60s around there. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. You get another pick, my friend.
Okay. This one has always kind of stood out to me because, if you haven't noticed already, I'm a bit of a mark for old school Japanese wrestling, but especially All Japan. That's one of my favorites of all time. But the lariat from Stan Hansen,
Oh,
because
hell yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
and
baby.
it,
Beautiful.
it didn't dawn on me until probably just a little bit before we started recording, and I thought, there we go, because that one, the way he would hit it, especially because there's always the joke, oh, he's legally blind, so he couldn't tell where he's. The opponent would almost have to walk
Mhm.
into it properly, or else he could probably take their head off or crack their sternum or something. But uh, the force that he would give that was unreal, and you got to wonder how much of it actually did affect the opponent, in a shoot, because especially if you look at the legally blind aspect, but it looked like he would take the guy's head off. And it was that right there, you can look at and say, that could take anybody out. I don't care who you are, because just the force he's hitting you with it. And you got to think, like, I don't care if you're 400 pounds or 200 pounds, whatever. You're gonna get knocked on your ass. And I think JBL did a very good one as well, because obviously he models a lot of his stuff after Stan Hansen. But man, anytime you would see that, it didn't matter if it was All Japan or in the AWA or WCW or wherever, or WWF. He would always knock the opponent right on his ass, and it just looked ferocious, and I just love it.
Stan Hansen had a second stint in the WWF, not the Bruno, not when he broke Bruno's neck, because he was green as a pool table at that point.
Mm-hmm.
When he came back around 81, he had brown hair, short brown
Mm-hmm.
hair. Blassie was still his manager, but he was smooth. He was ready. He was a much better Stan Hansen by that point, and a great interview on top of it. But you're right. His lariat, most vicious
The
clothesline,
clothesline,
excuse
yeah,
me,
yeah,
unbelievable. I mean, big, strong, bull of a man running at top speed into the guy's neck. Holy smokes, man. It
yeah,
was spectacular.
yes.
And you're right. Japan, forget it. I mean, him and Brody, really?
Oh my god,
Most
you can't
ferocious tag
even,
team. No, you
yeah, you
can't.
can't even compare that to a lot of people. It's just that was a next level beating the crap out of people. It was incredible. Yeah, it's true. It's
I'm
true.
sorry to laugh, but that's going to be a tagline when I promote this. Next level beating the crap out of people on the next outdated wrestling. That's too good.
Yeah. No, that's what they did, right? That was their calling card. So
Yep.
you gotta appreciate that, right?
I do appreciate that. And you know what else I appreciate? Getting to meet Rob Van Dam when he was just a wee tadpole working in Memphis for $25 shots.
Hmm.
And I was one of the first people in the United States to see his split-legged moonsault, my next
Oh,
choice.
yes.
And I named it. Did you know that?
Yes, I remember you saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. He probably doesn't remember it. I don't care if he does. I don't even care if people, it's not that big a deal.
Sure.
And we came up with it in a conversation on the phone when I was writing his introducing feature for
Hmm.
the Wrestler magazine.
Hmm.
And I said, "You got a name for that thing?" He said, "No, not yet." I said, "I'm just for the sake of what it looks like, I'm calling it a split-legged moonsault because his legs would go in a perfect letter V. He'd flip back over, smooth as silk, unbelievable. I've never seen him. A lot of people do it now, not like he did it.
Mm.
Not a man his size, and he had some size. People think he was a smallish guy. He wasn't.
No.
He was
No.
built like a tank."
Oh yeah.
And the fact that he had such unbelievable lift, I saw him do it in Memphis. My eyes bugged out of my head, and I walked into the back and I said, "This is the best opener I've ever seen." He took on Nightmare Danny Davis,
Hmm.
and I walked in the back, just blurted out, "That's the best opener." And Eddie Marlin says, "Yeah, I think you're right."
Mm.
So I was like, I was onto something there. So I went back to the office and told everybody about this kid, Rob Stakowski, and give it a year. He was Rob Van Dam, and the rest is history. What a guy.
Yeah. That was actually when I was just kind of getting introduced to ECW. Um, I had seen him do that, and I just it was one of those things where I had to rewind the tape because I'm like, what the hell did he just do?
Right, right.
And it was different, but it was a type of moonsault that, the way he was delivering it, it would give more impact. It wasn't just a run of the mill moonsault, but it's like, he's with the springboard, it's like he's giving that much more impact when he lands. And it was just like, wow, really interesting. And you don't really see that many people do it nowadays because just to be able to split like that takes a lot of effort. Not
Yeah.
everybody can do that, so that's but yeah, that was an excellent move.
Both him and Sabu, absolutely gifted athletes. I mean,
Hmm.
if you've ever seen, even for 2 minutes, Sabu against Rob Van Dam, holy
Oh yeah,
smokes.
yeah,
Holy smokes. I
yeah,
mean, made for each other,
crazy
right?
stuff. Yes,
Made for
yes,
each other.
absolutely.
All right, it's your turn. I'm anxious to see your next pick because this is going to be fun. Go ahead.
Okay, well, the only thing is this is a new school move, but um, I think you would agree that the team is very much rooted in the old school. And I give it to FTR's Shatter Machine, which
Bingo.
is there. There you go.
I'm with you. No, I'm with you. They're great.
They're excellent.
E-
They are
Even
one
the
of
federation they're in can't screw them up all
no,
totally.
I mean they are one of the best tag teams I've seen in the last 20 years, and there's a lot of there have been a lot of great tag teams. Not as many I think as before the 2000, but you look at them and they are a throwback in the best possible way because they're taking everything that every move they do, all the footwork, everything, it all matters. And I think a lot of teams these days are focused more on just doing the double team moves and just running through opponents and not making it look kind of the acrobatic stuff, Young Bucks, all that stuff, which I don't care for at all. But when you take a team like FTR and that Shatter Machine, I it's one of those things where they hit it out of nowhere, kind of like an RKO kind of deal, right? But they hit it out of nowhere, and it looks like it would just like cave the guy's chest in when they're giving it to him. And I remember the first time I saw it, and I just went, "Oh my god, what was that?" Because I'd never seen it before, and that's hard to do these days with wrestling. Everybody's seen everything, but that was just, I think it's incredible, and I think those guys they get a lot of credit from a lot of people, but I think there's still some out there that don't realize how great they actually are. And if you can look to the feud that trilogy they had with the Briscoes, the Briscoe brothers, it was excellent stuff, just real throwback stuff, and I can't applaud it any more than possible. Like it just always throws me how great they are.
I think they're a little misused. They're poorly promoted. The image they have for them is all wrong. I think that they need to just let them get out there.
Mm-hmm.
No hype, no feuds, no messing around. Purely a championship level team, and that should be the main thing about them is that they go for the gold all the time. That's just my opinion on them.
No, I agree. I mean, there has been a bit of a they have been promoted well in the sense that they collected all those belts and all that to show how really great they were. The only problem is they couldn't get the one at their home promotion. So how does that
Yeah,
make any sense? But
no. What
but
does make sense over there, to be honest with you? But
no,
it's just
not a whole
yeah,
lot.
right.
But yeah, I that they're one of my favorite tag teams probably of all time now, and I just can't praise them enough. I think they're excellent.
There you go. And you know what? I'll stick with the modern wrestling. A
Sure.
WWE female. I know there have been times when she performs this maneuver and it's takes too long.
Okay.
And I know that people are tired of it. I'm not. That corkscrew moonsault she does is beautiful. It's just gorgeous. And I realize, there's like all off of the top turnbuckle maneuvers, people tend to overuse it or they use it. It takes too long to get it off. But
Hmm.
she did one against Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania that was perfect.
We're talking about
And
Charlotte Flair, by the way. I don't think you said
Charlotte
her
Flair,
name yet.
yes.
Yeah.
Did I not say her
I
name?
don't think you did, but yeah.
Oh, well, it's obviously Charlotte Flair. And
Sure.
I think it's just a spectacular move.
Absolutely.
When it's shown in slow motion, it's breathtaking. I don't know what to say other than I'm in awe of that move. It's just the fact that she has that kind of athleticism, just to be able to twirl around in the air like that. It's spectacular. It's just from a physical level, it's incredible.
She is a generational talent, and I know I'm probably gonna anger some people when I say this. I've never been the biggest Ric Flair fan. I appreciate everything he's done,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a great wrestler, but I think his daughter has eclipsed him in a lot of ways. And like I said, a lot of people are gonna get angry when they hear that, but she gets it. And I'm just every time I watch her, she just kind of does everything like everything has a purpose, and she's very believable, great seller. And for someone that hasn't been in the business that long, really, when you think about it, maybe a decade now, maybe, um, she hits everything perfectly, and you can't really. There's very few people that could probably dispute that. I would think it's just an opinion of a lot of people that she is just one of the best wrestlers out there right now, male or female. I think.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
And Hall of Famer already.
Oh God, yeah.
Not
God, yeah.
five times over already. I mean, there's no
Oh,
question
yeah.
about that in my mind.
Absolutely.
Okay. Go ahead.
I went for one that it seems the last few years you hear a lot of people say how underrated it was. As far as a finishing move, and it goes back to tag teams again, but I think Power and Glory's Powerplex, Paul Roma and Hercules, was such a great finishing move. Such a great finishing move.
Wow.
Yeah.
I watch me fall off my chair. Boom. Here I go. Ah.
It was incredible. You got the big superplex, and then you got the big splash off the top. Like, man, Roma was obviously the flash of the group. Hernandez obviously was the muscle. I mean, they're both, big strong guys, but that was the kind of placement. But just to be able to see them do that, and they weren't used nearly as well as they should have been, not even close. And they were just kind of one of those almost throw together teams. But man, that move, it's not the fanciest thing in the world, but it was like, man, it just looked so impressive and looked so devastating,
What is it with Paul Roma? I mean, they built him up into that tag team after his, what was it, the Young Stallions?
Young Stallions, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then he actually was named a member of the Four Horsemen for about 35 seconds.
Yeah.
And it just, for some reason, everything went poof for the poor guy. He was criminally underrated. One of those guys. He was underrated. He was good looking. He was over. They had him on Madison Square Garden cards every month for like 2 years, and he always went over.
Yeah.
Of course, that was with the Young Stallions, but still, I mean, I don't know why he didn't become a major star, or at least an intercontinental champion type. That type, I just don't get it, and I never will, because maybe. I guess somebody thought something was missing, or he was too old school baby face looking. I don't know. I can't answer it.
He kind of compares to me to someone like Tom Zank.
Yeah, good one.
Had almost the same thing. Like, he had the looks, he had the physique, he had great moveset, all that stuff, and he just never got to that next level. Like, Zank always did well, but he never got to that next level. And it's kind of like the same with Paul Roma. I don't know if it was politics or anything like that, but you sometimes you just think, like, what the hell just happened? You can't push everybody, right? No. You can't. But I mean, he had everything that they would have wanted, and they still didn't go for it. And sometimes I just shake my head and say, I don't know what happened.
I don't often mention the last podcast I was a part of, but on John Rizzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight, we did a interview with Tom Zink, just talking off the cuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you something. If they let Tom Zink beat Tom Zink, he would have been a major star.
Oh, yeah.
He would have been really popular. He was an interesting, intelligent guy, good-looking athlete. I remember his matches against Pillman were spectacular in the WCW. And when they wouldn't pay him right in the WWF, he said, I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. And he was. So he was a man of his word and a man of his convictions. And it may have burned him a little bit, but you know what? He was good. He was real good. He was real good.
Big time.
And I think God bless him, he's gone now, but I think should have been a bigger star. I'm convinced of that, especially after hearing him talk in that interview. If you ever get a chance to hear it, you can look it up on one of John Rizzi's podcasts. Just a tremendous mind. He knew everything that was going on in the whole wrestling world. He could have been a booker too. I mean, he was that bright. He was really engaged in everything. And I long after his death, I became a fan of Tom Zink. It's an odd thing to say, but that interview made me go out and look at all the old tapes of him, and I went, man, was he good?
Yeah.
So there's my 2 cents on Tom Zink. So
yeah, absolutely.
But all right, is it mine?
Yes, it's yours.
I think it's mine. I'm going to just say this quickly. The most emulated wrestling maneuver of the last 40 years. It was a finisher for the man who first did it. And now everybody does it over and 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 over again. Shawn Michaels super kick.
Okay.
Am I right?
Yes.
It is now overused to the point of being rote and meaningless. Every young wrestler who's the slightest bit athletic does a super kick over and over and over. And now it's not a finisher. It doesn't set up anything. It's just a maneuver now. And it'll never, all these guys combined will never compare. It'll never compare to the originator of that move. I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but if I never see another super kick again by anybody but Shawn Michaels, it'll be too soon.
Yeah, I have seen Chris Adams, who I do believe came up with the move. I not 100%.
Was it called that?
I don't. It might have just been a Savate kick because that was kind of what they called it in the 80s. It
Right,
seemed
Chris
like.
Adams. You're right. You're right.
Yeah. Now I don't know if it was 100% because I haven't. I can't profess to seeing a lot of Chris Adams' work. I have seen some. But yeah. But it is one of those moves where it's just like you hit someone with your foot like that. That should knock them right out. And the way Michaels did it was I don't know, just tuning up the band, kind of, stomping on the mat, tuning up the band, doing all that. And then when he hits it, he'd always hit it so perfectly that it looks like the guy's head's going to come flying off.
Not only
And
that, the smacking noise.
yeah, and
Incredible.
that's the thing though, that when he did it and you'd hear the smack, you can't pinpoint it like today where it's a leg slap every time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. And when he did it, it was done perfectly because I'm not the biggest Michaels fan. I very much appreciate everything he did. I think he's an excellent wrestler, but you know, to have something like that be emulated so much, I guess it shows how influential he was in the business to so many
Mm-hmm.
wrestlers. Because it's always like, oh, are you a Sean guy or you're a Brett guy? That's always the
Mm-hmm.
when you talk to people. I don't really care, but
No, me either.
well,
Here's the thing. I am not the biggest Shawn Michaels fan either because I
sure.
didn't like a lot of his programs, but that's a whole nother ball of wax,
Hmm. Hmm.
But just that one move, man. I mean, I thought it was killer. That's all. It just impressed me, especially. And again, it was a finisher. Once he applied it or once he kicked you, you were
Hmm.
out, and that was it.
Yeah.
Now they do it minute 2 of a match, and some guys do it 5, 6, 7 times. I mean, it's just that's crazy. I come on, guys, learn something, will you? God Almighty, try to make it look real once in a while, please,
Yeah.
please,
Wouldn't
please.
hurt, would it?
No, go
Yeah.
ahead, give me another one.
um, I went for I thought of one, and it's not necessarily one that anybody would point out, but I always thought it was really cool. Was Dr. Death Steve Williams, Dr. Bomb, and he's giving me the thumbs up, everybody, so he likes it.
Yeah, you can't see it, but I did give him a thumbs up.
Yeah,
Yes, I did.
and it's it was just I guess it was just because it was like off to the side. It wasn't a traditional power bomb, and he looked like he just you have to gut wrench the guy just to bring him up, and especially from that angle, it looks like really. It looks like it wouldn't be the easiest move to pull off, but Steve Williams, right? He was a powerhouse, so whatever. But just the way he would do it and the force he would land it with, and it would look just sick. And I know it's not like one that everybody would point out, but it always just made an impression on me, just based on how powerful he looked while doing it and how much power he would land it with, and that always just made an impression on me. And you don't really see a lot of people do it. I've seen some people do it here and there, but it's nobody as good as Steve Williams.
Can't argue. I can't argue.
Yeah.
You just mentioned Steve Williams, and boy, is he should be thought of more for his just a giant of a guy
Hmm.
with giant maneuvers. Everything he
Absolutely.
did, that running power slam. My lord, I mean, it's
Hmm.
just
Yeah, and
spectacular, spectacular. You didn't
he
think
was
that was fake.
no, he.
You
I
know what I
mean,
mean? There's the thing about everything we've talked about. I think on your list and my list, it all looks believable and real. Every one of these maneuvers.
Yes, and that's all. Like I said, that's what I go for, because I don't want to be able to poke holes into stuff. Like you can see, I don't know. You could look at John Cena's, say, his attitude adjustment. That's kind of, I guess, his finishing move. But it would just be, and I'd see him and he'd throw the guy off his shoulders and he'd land on the mat, and I'm thinking, okay, like how how is that really gonna finish someone off? And that's just me. That's in my head. I'm looking at it going like,
Oh,
I don't,
this guy's from my past too. Tommy Rich's Thez press.
Sure.
It didn't look like he landed him enough force to hold him down.
Exactly.
But he always held him down.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not criticizing Tommy Rich. He's a great guy, but you know what I'm saying? It just looked like it wasn't enough.
You don't want to poke holes in it.
My visual of it, yeah.
No, you don't want to poke holes in it. You want to be able to think that would actually do it. And like that's why the DDT, that's what gets me upset about the DDT, is it's a transition move now. But if you're dumping someone on their head, they shouldn't be able to get up. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. So why would that be something that isn't even considered these days? That's if I was a wrestler, I wouldn't be using that as a transition move, even though it'll never get back to its rightful status. But that's what happens with evolution, I guess, right?
Evolution, you're right. Yeah. Now, I only have 2 more left.
Okay.
We're going to wrap this up soon, but this next one, was it my turn? No, it's my turn.
Yeah.
This one is way off the mark. Nobody in the world is going to remember this.
No, we'll see.
People remember Stan the Man Stasiak in the 70s for his heart punch.
Yes.
This is not what I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
He used to deliver his heart punch with a taped fist.
Mm-hmm.
But with that same fist, he would also grab his opponent in a headlock and smack him in the forehead. And you hear this pop every time he did it. And I'm like, how did he do that?
Mm-hmm.
This ringing off the arena walls pop. It remains one of my favorite maneuvers of all time. I don't know how he did it. I had a friend who insisted he had one of those kids' poppers in his tape.
Oh, okay.
Boop. But it sounded like smack, this robust smacking noise every time he would smack a guy in the head with this clenched fist.
Sure.
First of all, that meant he was hitting him in the head with the fist for real. There's no question about that.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, how did he do it? I'll never know. This is my Sheik's fireball. I don't know how he did it. I've asked other people. Nobody, they know what I'm talking about. People around in that era.
Mm-hmm.
They would say, yeah, I remember that. How did he do it? Stan Stasiak, you're the man, so to speak.
Yeah, he's one of those ones that he was a transitional champion, they called it in WWF, and didn't hold it for that long, and that's kind of what everybody thinks of.
That's what I remember him from. But he was a star in Portland too. They loved him there. Sure. He was from that area, and the old school tough guy brawler with the scar on the forehead and the sneer on his face.
Yeah.
Not a body beautiful, but big enough to tussle with anybody. Give me those guys 10 times out of 10, man. You know why? You believed everything he ever did.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously. You believed he was a tough guy. You know why? He was a tough guy.
Look at the heart punch, right? If, you sell that enough where, everybody thinks, if he's got that fist and he's ready, like they're like, oh no, this guy's going to be done. And, you make it look like that's it. You're done. And he was believable, right? So can't say the same about his son necessarily, but, Stan the Man, right? He was great.
But I got to get to the bottom of that smack to the head. Maybe Apter or somebody knows. I'm trying to get Apter on the show. Apter, if you're listening, I want you on the show. Yep. I got to find the secret of that smack. All right, give me one more, man.
Okay. Looking here, I still got a few, but whatever.
Well, you know what? List them. List them.
Okay, I'll do a rapid fire,
and then finish with your big finisher. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll do a rapid fire. Randy Savage with the flying elbow drop off the top rope.
Oh,
nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. I think the Brain Buster. It starts out as a vertical suplex. Kind of looks like you're dumping the guy on his head. Coco Beware did a version of it, the Ghostbuster, which was great too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I always loved Total Elimination from the Eliminators. I always thought that was an excellent. They did the sweep of the leg, but then the big kick to the side of the head, and it was all in one big motion. It just looked like, I don't know, like we just killed the guy. And Yoshihiro Tajiri did the tarantula that would be on the ring ropes, and he would hold the guy in a. It just looked like he was a tarantula holding the guy with his legs and his arms on
Oh
the ropes.
yeah,
The only problem with it was they'd always have to count to 5,
right.
and he could never hold it for that long. But if it was, say, a no DQ match, which never made any sense because it was an ECW, which they didn't have DQs, so I don't know why they're counting. But
A
um,
lot of people stole that spot too.
yes,
A lot
but
of
it was
people have stolen that spot. Female wrestlers have done that.
sure, yeah, but it was great though. A couple more, the Mikey Whipwreck's Whippersnapper, which I guess if you really look at it, I guess maybe Steve Austin took it from him. I've heard that Mikey hadn't necessarily come up with it. I'm not 100% sure on that. I should ask him since I've worked with him on the podcast before, but yeah, it just looked like really devastating. He could hit it from the top rope. He could hit it just in the middle of the ring. He could hit it anywhere, and it looked devastating. And the other one was for me was the Perfect Plex from Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig, and the way he would lock the legs and have you in a it's kind of reminiscent, like I was saying about the Northern Lights suplex, how you'd have the guy stuck basically, and he wouldn't be able to move unless he really, really tried. And it was a great pinning maneuver, I thought, and nobody
It's
got out of it for a long time.
similar to Harley Race's suplex, right?
Sure, yeah, but you'd lock that leg in, and it's like they can't escape, right?
Right.
But the last one that I will go with is, and I seem to gravitate a lot towards tag teams. I don't know why, but
All right.
the last one for me, because the first time I ever saw it hit, I thought it was just crazy, is 3D from the Dudley Boys.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah,
Nice choice.
yeah,
Is that your
because
favorite?
I can't say it's my favorite. I never really pick favorites, but
No,
it's always
I'm gonna end with my favorite. We'll do it that way. Okay, go
yeah,
ahead.
but
I'm sorry.
it's always up there for me though, because they would hit that out of nowhere and the crowd would explode, and they even worked it into an angle with Tommy Dreamer and Beulah, how they broke her neck, quote unquote, so she could leave the promotion, and just the emotion that went with that, and Tommy Dreamer just being, he was chained to the rope and screaming because he can't get to his wife and everything, and it was just this whole thing incredible. But it one of those moves that the first time I ever saw it, and I think they were doing it on Sandman or something, and I just went like, man, I have never seen anything like that. And you can kind of tie it to maybe like Johnny Ace's Ace Crusher, things of that nature, and in later times it's RKO. You can call it like the Diamond Cutter kind of, but just the way the Dudleys did it, always looked impressive and was always just very devastating to me.
Wow, that's a good choice. Okay, I'm going to wrap up this mess, and I'll tell you what.
Mess.
Yeah, I am just being self-effacing. You know me, but at this point,
Yeah.
no, but this is my favorite maneuver of all time. It's not a hold; it's a maneuver. It is not a finisher.
Okay.
I never saw it used as a finisher.
Okay.
It's done by one of the greatest wrestlers of all time.
Mm-hmm.
He would do it virtually every match, and every time he did it, my eyes would bug out of my head. I go, how does he make this look so real, and how is he not killing his opponent?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm serious about this. My favorite maneuver of all time is Harley Race's slow motion knee drop.
Okay.
Either to the head or the throat.
Yeah.
How did he do it and make it look so amazingly perfect and not kill his opponent? Because it looked, I've watched it a million times in every match he's ever done, from the WWE all the way back to when he was a blonde-haired pretty boy, whatever his name was. And he does it so slow, and that slow drop with a knee pad right to the head.
Mm-hmm.
Spectacular. How does he do it?
Yeah, I don't know why I never thought of that one. It's actually
You know why? It's not a finisher. Nobody even thinks of it in that
no, but
regard.
the way you've just built that up, I'm just thinking, why didn't I remember that? Why didn't I think of that? Oh,
To
you're
me,
right. You're right.
Everything Harley Race did look real, first of all. But
Oh
of
yeah.
all the real looking stuff he did, to me, it thrilled me every time he did it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, he was worth the price of a ticket to go watch him do that, because he was going to do it. He did to all of his
Oh
opponents,
sure.
basically. Even when he
Yeah.
got really old and he was working in the WWE as the King, he still would deliver that. And he'd do a job, or he'd do it to Hogan, and you watch him. How did he do that?
Yeah.
I watched the legs, and it doesn't look like anything other than him landing on his opponent's head
Mm-hmm.
with that knee. Incredible.
Yeah.
What a technician. What a legend. That's all I have to say. If he was alive today, I'd be standing first in line with my money at the box office to go see Harley Race deliver that knee drop. Just a knee drop.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just a knee drop.
Yeah.
And that's what I miss about wrestling.
Oh
All
yeah.
tied up in one maneuver. The suspension of disbelief. The wrestler who would never kayfabe you. I'm a tough guy, and I'm going to prove it in my match. And he would run off that and his fisherman suplex and that flip over the rope he did, or bounding over the ropes at the age of 55 and making it look real even then. One of my favorite wrestlers of all time. How could he not be? Harley Race is the king of
Absolutely.
great wrestlers. No question about it.
Absolutely. And it just goes back to what we're saying through this whole conversation. It goes back to believability, and he was just a big, strong guy, and you couldn't poke holes in his stuff. So
No. So
I fully
you
agree.
remember, so you remember that knee drop then?
I do, yeah, and yeah, that's why I said I'm kind of kicking myself now that I didn't think about
Well,
it.
here's the thing. We've been thinking about fantastic power maneuvers. We've been thinking about finishers. We've been thinking about aerial stuff. We've been thinking about all the things that people think about when they think about their favorite maneuvers.
Mm-hmm.
This is my favorite because it's the realest looking thing I ever saw. The
Sure.
realest looking thing, the most devastating looking thing, and it was a short little maneuver, pinpoint every time. Thrills
Mm-hmm.
me just thinking about it. Look, look, the hair's up on my arm. See this?
Yeah.
So I love that maneuver more than anything I ever saw in wrestling to this
I
day.
believe it. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
hey, did you have fun doing this?
Yeah, I think I did. You know.
Oh, cool.
No,
Hey,
it's great because it brings back a lot of memories. You know,
it
this
certainly
was
does.
great.
And I think I jogged a lot of people's memories with that last one too, because it's like everybody, I think most of my listeners are going to go, yeah, that's right. People are going to have that kind of reaction to that.
The only problem is now you're gonna have people screaming at their phones, thinking, "Why didn't they say this one? Why didn't they say that one?" We're not gonna remember everything, guys. It's
Then
not
you all
possible.
have to write to us and let us know what your choices are, and I will read them on the air. How's that sound?
That's
In fact, you know
excellent.
what? If enough of you write to me, right, either on social media or in our email address, which I'll talk about later, I'll list the most popular ones and we'll read them on the air. How's that sound?
Sounds great. That sounds perfect.
You're all a part of this podcast, so I
Hmm.
keep asking you to write me. Tell
Hmm.
me I'm fat. I don't care what you have to say. Just write to us, and we will begin a dialogue with you. Because if without you guys out there, we don't do this.
Hmm.
So, you know what I'm saying? We
Yeah.
appreciate every one of you that listen, and tell us what your favorite maneuver. Who did we miss? What did we skip?
Yeah.
This is like the Rolling Stone list 50 greatest whatever. These things are put out to make you argue about it, and make you guess or make you think about, oh, I prefer this to that.
Yeah.
So if you prefer something else, let us know what you prefer. We'd like to hear it. We really would.
Absolutely.
So tell people where they can find you,
Sure.
Mr. Liam Savage.
Well, not in my house because that's off limits. But I if you go to my Twitter, Savage Liam, SAVAGELIAM, you will find my link tree, which has all of my links going up right now, just where you can find me in general. But I have added a new YouTube channel. My last one got taken down. I had too much Japanese content apparently on there that was, you know, It was a copyright problem. So I'm starting over, and there's some music, there's some wrestling, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's added. So if you'd like to get on there, help me get my subscriber counts back up, that would really be appreciated. And I think I just thank you, Bob, for having me back on again. This has been great. Really appreciate it.
This is Mr. Liam Savage, who is, in my mind, a true wrestling expert. Thank you for being here again, my friend.
Thank you so much, Bob. I appreciate it.
You got it. If you get into podcasting and you're serious about it, like I am, this ain't easy. It's a struggle to start. And if you're really into trying to excel at these things, it's a never-ending process. Microphones, mixers, mic stands, equipment, mic arms, recording software, a new computer, this, that, all sorts of things. And things do go wrong. We don't show you that part of what happens here. But I will say that the struggle has been worth it, because the last 6 weeks of this podcast have been an absolute thrill for all of us involved here. From the guests to my friends who have appeared, to the people who have been kind enough to allow me on their podcast. You all know who you are. I don't want to mention names now because you're all equal in my eyes. You have all done so much for this podcast, and I thank you for as profusely as I can. It has been a success. The numbers show it. I'm getting all kinds of offers based on this. I am back in the professional wrestling scene in a legitimate way, and it has been crazy and wonderful. And I want to connect with some more old friends and get them on the podcast for you all to enjoy. I want to get some new people in my life that I've met in the professional wrestling world. They're going to be on this podcast too. We are going to have a blast. We want you to have a blast, reminiscing and going over the history of professional wrestling with us. I can't thank you all enough, from everybody who's been on this show to you folks listening, taking time out of your schedule to pop on those headphones, to turn on your phone or turn on your laptop and listen to this show. It means so much. I'm so glad I started this. I can't tell you how grateful I am for all of this, all of it. I have some usual commercial announcement for you. I want to thank again Brian Teo for his tremendous theme song here. Thanks, Brian. Our website is outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com. If you don't like to download apps, you can listen to the show right then and there. Facebook, I'm Robert Smith. There's a bunch of those, but you'll find me. I'm the ugly one. I'm the fat one. Our Gmail is outdatedwrestling@gmail.com. Twitter, I'm Bob Smith NYC. Get a hold of us. Write to us anywhere you like to. Good, bad, or indifferent. Got some show suggestions? Let me know. You don't like the way I do my hair? Send me from Just for Men. I'll accept it. At my age, folks, Just for Men lasts just an hour. Well, anyway, that's our edition for this time. We hope you enjoyed this look back. And again, thank you all. Honest to goodness, thank you all. I'm going to leave you with the words of another wrestling legend. This time, Memphis wrestling legend, Eric Embry, who looked at the camera and said, "You don't know how crazy I can be."